Hey, what's up, ecosystem? Welcome back to Auto Transport Intel, the car shipping business channel. Every Tuesday night, it is my goal to bring you another trade show level presentation to you wherever you are, because your business deserves the latest news in auto transport. Recently, Ford unveiled the F-150 Lightning and a 20-something billion dollar investment in EV and battery production, where only a few years ago it was looking as if they were planning to outsource. GM, Hyundai, VW, Tesla, Rivian, Stellantis, all developing electric vehicles, all facing the new landscape of questions to answer. What about BVD, Daimler, Nikola, Volvo? Who wants to talk about EV semi-trucks? Are you ready to switch to an electric truck? How's the full capacity towing range on that thing? What are the trailer manufacturers thinking? How about charging stations on the road and at your location? What are dealers and auctions thinking? Actually, EV evolution affects all business verticals, not just the weight of EV on load factor and capacity, although that is a good place for us to start. So thank you for joining us on this EV transport plug-in journey. Please join the live chat, ask your questions, share your thoughts, grow your business, because it's Tuesday nights live on Auto Transport Intel. I'm Jay, your host. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Auto Transport Intel. It is Tuesday nights live, and I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for joining us. Please do feel welcome. Let's go to that welcome screen. Listen, if this is the first time you've been here, whether you're watching or listening to the podcast, please do feel welcome. It's an open forum. Carriers, dispatchers, dealers, brokers, you name it. We want you here. We want to hear how we can help you, and we want you to please say hello. Feel free to say hello in the live chat. If you're watching on demand, go ahead and put it in the comments below the video, below the audio, and we're going to go into the live chat actually in a few minutes. So if you're with us tonight and you're live and you're alive, you're here, that's right, Ty, we are ready to party. At the quarter hour, we're going to go into industry news. I love industry news, national news, social media news, front of the store, back of the store, what's being talked about, lots of EV news, transport tech, car shipping trends, stuff that I saw that I think I should share. That's what we're going to talk about. Then we're going to bring in Joe from Midwestern Car Carriers. That's in about 40 minutes. So you've got time, make some popcorn, whatever it is you do on a Tuesday night. Because when Joe gets here, he's got notes. I've got notes. I got copy. This is amazing. Joe, thank you so much for putting together so many thoughts for tonight's EV transport plug-in, the first of hopefully several. We are so lucky because at the 1 hour mark, we've got Paul Machin of Black Book, and he's got an EV presentation. Wow. When Paul speaks, people listen. And Paul is with us tonight. After Paul gives a presentation, we have got a full EV transport plug-in panel. Mike and Michele of ParkMyFleet, Mike of ARI, Alex of Transwest, Robbie of LMR, and Kristen of Charge Across America. This is a full show. This is no joke. So here's what you want to do. Stick around. Please say hello in the live chat, because when we come back after this, we're going to say hello. Oh, and by the way, do me a favor. We're going to be live for the next 2 hours talking about EV. So you can click that share button and the like button. Then click copy, grab the YouTube link, text it, email it, share it on social media, say, wow, can't believe this is happening right now. I don't know what's going on. Go to autotransportintel.com, click on sign up, become an ATI insider, talk to Ty. Just got a voicemail from another one. Somebody else looking for coaching. I think it was a carrier. So if you're out there, you're looking for coaching, Ty is in the live chat. Don't miss out. Stick around. We're going to be right back. That's Holly. That's United Road. The links are in the live chat. Go to holly.com. There's also a phone number. And be sure, go NVTA.org. GONVTA.org. National Vehicle Transporters Alliance. Find out more about it. You can also get into the Knowledge Center for free. Become a classic member. Thank you so much for that. Mic check 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. Let's go into the live chat. Sweet. Here it is. Now I'm going to back up the screen. You're seeing the live chat live on your screen. First in here was Ty, Cars on the Move. What's EV, he says. Ty's always doing that. Joel Hawk, hey everyone, happy Tuesday night. What's up, Joel? Thanks for tuning in. Kimberly is here. What's up? Welcome Tuesday Nights Live with your host, me. I'm Jay. Please do say hello. Thank you so much. Paul Machin is here. What is going on, Paul? Looking forward to the presentation tonight. It's going to be awesome. Super Dispatch is here. What's going on, Super Dispatch? Thanks for tuning in and saying hello. Two Bears, David. I bet you can't stump Brian. What's going on, David? Carlos Braxton, ACB Logistics. Thanks for tuning in, Carlos. Part of the core. What is it? What is that, Jay? Hey, BM says good evening. What's going on, BM? John, hey, LAI Auto Transport out of DC. What's going on, John? Thank you so much, man. I love that. I love it. John always puts the name of his company and where he's at. I got it. I know where he is. I know what the name of the company is. And I'm going to keep on getting it. Thank you so much, John. See what I did there? Okay, just a hint. Excited for, thank you so much. I hope this is a good show. I think it's going to be amazing. Rob Stevenson is with us. Hello from Interstate Towing and Recovery. What is going on moving that metal? Rob Stevenson, Interstate Towing and Recovery. Where do you hail from, Rob? Let's find out. I should know this. Oh, Ty, where are you, buddy? Oh, hey, there he is. There's Ty. Look at that. Ty is ringing the cowbell of the super chat. Thank you so much, Ty. I love what's happening here. We got Cars on the Move every Friday. Got the Melting Block of Ice Friday. Ty, Tim, Paul. Oh, wow. Look at that, Super Dispatch. Super Dispatch is in here ringing the cowbell. Thank you so much, Super Dispatch. If you missed the mobile app Tug of War last Tuesday night, and I know some people did miss it. Man, it was YouTube, I promise. What did you wink both eyes? So YouTube crashed last Tuesday night, but the stream is fine. Okay, the playback now is like butter. Okay, so play it back Tuesday night with Super Dispatch in the mobile app Tug of War. That was a great show. So thank you for that. Let's see here. What else we got here? Oh, Tim is here. What's going on? Yeah, Tim, it's an exciting lineup tonight. So thank you so much, man. Thanks for tuning in, saying hello. Randy Wills is here. What's going on? Randy, Joe Bercari from Midwestern Car Carriers. He works with Randy. Joe is here tonight. That's really cool. So thank you, Randy. And that's the thing. If you send me an email, autotransportintel@gmail.com, ask Randy, ask Stan from last week's mobile app tug of war. You send me an email, you tell me about a problem, let's talk. Let's turn it into a show. Let's do this thing. Appreciate that. Silverman is here. Ding, ding. Hauling a dead Tesla right now. Really? Oh, there's 10,000 more waiting for you. Now that's it. No 9-car wedgie. No 9-car or wedgie will not want to touch it. Very interesting. Very interesting. That is interesting. Hey, what's up, Andrew Matthews? How's it going? SuperFlo Systems is here. What's happening? Robbie's in the live chat. What's up, Robbie? Robbie's going to be on the show tonight. They're talking about Bitcoin. Why wouldn't you? Darren. Hey, what's up, Darren? Darren is here from Secure Auto Transport. That's very cool. We're a few minutes early, and I think that the industry news is a bit beefy tonight. So I think, unless there's anything else, if anybody else has anything they want to say, now's your chance. But otherwise, yeah, I got plenty of industry news to keep us busy. And so I think we'll do that. Let's see, is there anything else, Ty? Let's see, DOT compliance tomorrow. Dispatching live. That's what I wanted to say. Man, we got a lot. Do you know that there's a lot between mobile app tug of war and then different topics? There's a lot happening on dispatching live right now. There is a lot of gripe, shall I say. I'm just going to put it that way. There's a lot of gripe. Plenty of gripe to go around. Actual random gripe. And we cover that on Dispatching Live. I highly recommend, if you haven't checked out Dispatching Live on Thursdays, do tune in. And it doesn't matter whether you are, whether you're driving pallets or commanding armies. I'm telling you, Dispatching Live will surprise you. It'll surprise you what is really going on out there, actually. I'm not kidding. Stan, hello, Jay, Kansas Transit in the house. What's up, Stan? Thanks for tuning in and saying hello. Yeah, and so this is right. EV transport, right? Is EV transport, is it that exciting? You know, let's see, cat videos or EV transport? Well, I understand. Believe me, I'm right there with you. But we got to talk about it, so we do have a lot to talk about. And what does Darren say? Hope we don't have any issues this evening. The only thing that we might have is, I saw like a hiccup on the internet, but I think that was local. That was recent. I don't think there's any YouTube craziness or storms or, tsunamis or nuclear meltdowns. Hopefully not tonight. So, but please keep me posted. Let me know what's happening. How's the audio? Mic check 1, 2, 3. How's the video? I think everything's okay. Keep me posted. Let me know. Text me. Email me. Share it on social media. autotransportintel@gmail.com. Now he's just on autopilot. Guys, do me a favor. Stick around, because right after this, we're going to go into industry news, and you aren't going to want to miss it.
SuperFlo Systems is excited to introduce DispatchCenter.com, a full-service load board for brokers, shippers, carriers, and drivers, featuring integrations with Truckify mobile app and iTruckPay. Use Route Scout technology to build your routes. Maximize truck capacity. Stay loaded at the highest available revenue with the least amount of driving miles. Tell us your lanes. Loadification will alert you to new loads posting in your route. Views instant load notifications sent with Book Now features. Search and book loads directly through the Truckify mobile app. Brokers and shippers, post your loads to Dispatch Center. Give authorized carriers the opportunity to instantly book your loads. Dispatch Center powers the Truckify mobile app, allowing instant load assignment to the driver. Truckify will send inspection reports, geo-located pickup and delivery photos, BOLs, and invoices back to the broker. Brokers, shippers, carriers, and drivers, Dispatch Center, and Truckify have what you need to be more profitable every day.
That is SuperFlo Systems Dispatch Center. Visit superflowsystems.com. You've got an email address. Ooh, look at that. There's an email address in the live chat. You've got the website in the live chat. And then go to dispatchcenter.com. Here's the deal. Go to SuperFlo Systems and find out about end-to-end auto transport software suite, right? CRM, TMS. What do you need? What are you looking for? Load board, right? You're looking for loads. You're looking for smart software, loadifications. All that happens at SuperFlo Systems. And then go to dispatchcenter.com, log in, and hey, you got a question, you got a problem? Mark is right here in the live chat. He wants to know, what do you need? What are you looking for in your software? That's what he wants to know. Jay, you need some Midwestern car carrier trucks in your promo. You know, Randy, that's a really good idea. In fact, it's funny, Randy, actually a bit of a mind reader, because I'm sitting there watching the promo. I'm thinking, man, there's some old footage. But there's so many other things going on. But yeah, some of it's like, in fact, some of it's like what are some of those trailers that you're showing, Jay? Anyways, I love the idea. That's a really, really good idea. And, you know, another great idea is only one cowbell away. So thank you so much, Mark, SuperFlo Systems, for ringing the cowbell. You know, Mark was also on Mobile App Tug of War last Tuesday night. And, man, we had an incredible auto transport software conversation. Mark, thank you so much for your participation and support. It really means a lot. And by the way, we are not just making videos, are we? Mark, how often do we either talk to Mark or talk about Mark? Really? No, really, all the time. Because Mark is part of the ATI network. And that's how we roll. So, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you. Let's do some industry news. And by the way, next week's show, stick around because we're going to tease it. We're going to tee that up. Here we go. Okay, so you know that tonight is episode 191 in a row. EV Transport plug-in, why? What's going on? Yes. Did you see the video, the reveal of the F-150 Lightning? I'm going to just say this. I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I saw this screen, intelligent backup power. You can transfer power from your truck to your house. Now that is a good idea. That I don't think you can. You do that with gas? Delicately. That's really interesting. So yes, overall, here we go. We got Black Book. How can dealers prepare for future electric vehicle growth? Paul's with us tonight. He's going to talk about it. So, yes, Ford has received more than 44,000 reservations, they say, for the F-150 Lightning electric pickup truck since the reveal last week. And I got to say, it was the Mega Power frunk that also caught my eye. Did you see that frunk? That was some crazy frunk. I look at the whole industry, you know, I try to consider all the verticals and how, you know, when I do a show, okay, what are the verticals and how does this impact these verticals? So I've identified really, we're going to try and focus from Joe and the carrier perspective on carriers and loads, but really it's everybody. Dear entire industry. We got the back of the store, we got the front of the store, and around it goes. Back of the store is the transport parking lot, front of the store where they're selling the cars. I think it's connecting, it's literally just, you know, connecting. It is the 2021 year of the hybrid. It's physical meets digital. I'm still on the loop, right? Physical meets digital. Where does one end and the other begins? As I like to say, when the auction is a packed house, you'll find Ty on Clubhouse. Visit Ty, find him at Ty Transport Guy on Clubhouse. Because I think Clubhouse is going to need to learn more about cars on the move, connecting dealers, auctions, and carriers. So on the news, as we ramp in, we like to look at a little bit of, you know, the crazy stuff, and that's unfortunate. Can you see that? This was on TikTok. That's what you want to see on TikTok. There's the trailer number. Now, this was not on TikTok, but I found it about as... Alright, so I see these articles. Auto transport anywhere in the United States at great rates by a trustworthy, family-owned, We're going to ring the bell every time I read the word family-owned. Words family-owned and operated business. Blankety blank is a family-owned and operated business that ships vehicles to any blah, blah, blah. Over the past decade, auto transport company, best in the universe, etc. I thought, okay, fine. Guess what? I see another. Really? You have another article? How do I know? Blank transport firm celebrates more than a decade of positive reviews. Blankety blank is a family-owned and operated vehicle transport firm. What's your point, Jay? The point is, I don't really know what the impact of these, other than Google and, writing for robots. This is the kind of thing that I think really spreads the word you're looking for. Just add the words family-owned, most incredible, share some pictures of the delivery, right? Of course it's Carvana. And then they include, stuff. They got stuff for the kids because they had, found out what the customers like. That's a great idea. Even something as simple as this. No hassle, no after hours, family owned, no strangers, no haggling. But anyways, Tesla has found themselves stuck with over 10,000 cars on factory hold, resulting in a logistical nightmare. Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I really, really appreciate that, Chris. Thank you so much. And J.D. Mickles. J.D. Mickle owes Ty a call. Well, isn't that funny? Hey, you don't see that very often. It does hurt to see that stuff. Tesla, 10,000 cars on factory hold. What's going on there? So I dove in. And by the way, this is 10,000 electric cars that came out of the Fremont factory on a containment hold. So next time you need to get out of something, to say, I'm on a containment hold. I really can't do it right now. But anyways, since Tesla owns its entire distribution network, doesn't sell to third-party dealers, the automaker has been known to have difficult end of quarters where it's trying to deliver. We've read about these things. Well, this one, the Model 3 and Model Y, coming out of the assembly line with a containment hold, meaning they can't be delivered. Here's the good news. The issue is small enough that it can be fixed by a service team, and so they're just going to go ahead and ship a bunch of vehicles and work it out later. Maybe. Stay tuned. I don't know. Doesn't sound good either way. What are you going to do? Lordstown says 2021 output will be half of expected, at best 50%. Blame it on, I'm pretty sure this is I don't think this is a containment hold. I'm going to go with microchip. I'm going to go with microchip for 100. Actually, 50%. In fact, all the OEMs affected by the microchips, Ford is at the top with over 300,000. General Motors near that. Stellantis 250, Subaru 45, VW, Honda. Boy, we got all the down to the thousands. Anyways, it's pretty much everyone. And he says it's going to get worse. So there you go. In case you were wondering, containment hold. Honk offers same-day transport. Have you heard of Honk? Honk's on-demand vehicle transport offer one-click same-day advanced scheduling, short distance, less than 100 miles. Interesting, right? I've been talking about this stuff. Here's Honk. Okay. Drivers Exchange, an online car marketplace. They reached an agreement with Acertus to facilitate pickup and delivery. Under the agreement, Acertus will pick up vehicles acquired or sold on Drivers Exchange and deliver them directly to the purchaser's destination. So look for that. Drivers Exchange. Pickup and delivery service is expected to begin July 15th. ATRI. Yeah, what are they researching? How to best integrate 18 to 20-year-olds into trucking? Charging infrastructure? Marijuana and other drugs? Impacts of driver-facing cameras on fleets? And environmental impacts of zero-emission trucks. Now you know, in case you've been wondering. Auction Academy Class 7 registration is open. There's some great news. And in fact, we are going to... I'm going to meet members of Auction Academy at Car Conference next month in Las Vegas. And then Auction Academy is going to be live on Auto Transport Intel. In about a month, I guess. Finished Vehicle Logistics has an event, virtual event. That is in about a month. Finished Vehicle Logistics North America Live. Yes, you can get 30% off using ATI 30 as a code when you book. So do that. And then we're going to have Christopher Ludwig on Cars on the Move the week before the event. That's going to be great. Love it when we have Chris on. This is how you get your car shipping news. It's on Auto Transport Intel. This is Tuesday Nights Live. Thank you so much for putting it on the big screen and making the whole family watch. Okay, what? So, I apologize. I apologize. I don't even know what that was. It is time for Are You a Car Shipping Guru? Maybe that's... just gonna say that's why. Yeah, I was excited about the Larry questions. Here we go. What was the #1 selling electric vehicle in the U.S. in 2020? Chevy Bolt, Tesla X, Nissan Leaf, Tesla 3. We do the questions on Tuesday Nights Live. The answers are on Thursdays, but you can win. What you want to do is, we're going to put the link here in the live chat. Go to dispatchcenter.com/Ask Larry, and you can submit the answers. Nobody has seen, this is the only question anybody's seen so far, unless you could beat me to it right now. You could go, there it is. Go to dispatchcenter.com/Ask Larry, and if you type fast enough, you can start typing the next questions before I even ask them. Why did I mention that? What is the most appropriate carrier pay to ship a 2020 Kia Telluride from Phoenix to Fishers, Indiana? Now, this is Larry, the Transport Auto Quoter, Quotify Llama. Alexa, open Quotify. No, seriously, you can do that if you enable the skill. But until then, what is the, so this is the number that'll get it moved. Go play. There you go, Rob. Just put it in the live chat. There you go. Tesla 3. That's a good guess. It's really good. Oh, hey, we got some other folks. Jay Wilson's here. What's up? JRW Prime Transport. Thank you so much for saying hello, Jay, and tuning in and joining us. Auto Locators, what's going on? Thank you for tuning in and joining us. We've got quite an interesting EV transport panel in the near future, but until then, we've got another question. Here we go. What is the average weight of Tesla Model 3 battery? Ooh, what a great question. Man, SuperFlo Systems. Good job, Mark. That is a great question. Kudos to you and Ashley. Really, I love that. I don't know. I have no idea what the answer is at all. Rob, you got a guess? Because I'd love to know. My Alexa just opened Spotify. Oh, that is funny. Every show, I want at least one Alexa every show. Okay, here we go. What is the most appropriate carrier pay to ship a 2016 Hyundai Sonata from Marietta, Georgia to Denver, Colorado? Great guesses here. I love that. Love what's going on in the live chat. Thank you so much. And we do. Me and Sue have a great time on Thursdays on Dispatching Live at noon live on Auto Transport Intel. Approximately, if you want to just if you skip getting there at noon. At noon we look at the load boards. At about 1 o'clock we do the answers. Love that. Okay, here we go. Giving away all the secrets, Jay. Which of the following aspects of an electric vehicle impacts the shipping price? The battery weight, the color, the drivetrain, or the push-button start? Great stuff. Okay, well, I feel like that might be the center of the bingo card, and I appreciate it, because I almost never get all 5 correct. Really great job. Thank you so much, SuperFlo Systems. Love that. Awesome stuff. Be sure to sign up, become an ATI insider. You can talk to Ty. If you've got coaching questions, you got network questions, you have show questions, or just overall confusion, no problem at all, because you know what? We understand, and that's why we have the ELD punch on the ready, right? We're ready to go. So here, I'll tell you what, stick around. We're going to be right back after this.
Hey, it's Ty, transport guy, hanging out in the transport parking lot always. If you want to learn to grow your business, I think you should probably go to ATI Insider, sign up for free. Don't give anybody any money. And with that, you get, I think you get a 20-minute phone call, which usually turns into a little longer than that. You get to join the roundtable, which is once a month. And at the roundtable, what we do is we get pretty detailed about how to build your business, how to connect with dealers, how to connect with auctions, how to build a lane. If you're new, if you saw a YouTube video and says, I can make $1 million in a week and I want to get into car hauling, Ty, and maybe you own a Stinger, maybe you own a little rollback. Man, how do I figure this out? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? What do I need? How do I do it? You get to make relationships with other carriers. It's kind of not a one-size-fits-all. Let's hear a little bit about you. Go to the ATI Insider. Get signed up. I can help you. I really can.
And there is Ty's information in the live chat. He's also in the live chat. He's going to be on the show tonight. So, I'll tell you what. Let's get into part 2 of the industry news so we can land this plane on time. Towing range for the Ford F-150 Lightning sure seems like it's going to be very bad, says this headline. Now, we're going to be talking about some of this tonight, but a normal range of 230 to 300 miles, and it can tow up to 10,000 pounds. So what happens if you start to execute that? Well, this guy had some experience with a Tesla, and he was talking about the, Tesla Model X, which weighs 5,500, and in which one driver a couple years ago saw range drop up to 60% while towing a 3,800-pound trailer. Okay, well, we can't just go with just that, but based on these numbers, and all considering how ICE fuel mileage drops while towing, this author would expect at least a 50% drop in range when at full towing capacity. We're going to be talking about that tonight. BYD, what's BYD? Well, you may know. It's known for its buses, but it is ramping up production of medium and heavy-duty electric trucks. BYD is the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles, Class 8 day cab, Class 6 truck, and BYD delivered its 100th battery electric truck in the U.S. in early 2020. And then they had a Class 8 model for Anheuser-Busch. There's some information. Let's see, a range of 125 miles, top speed 65. It can recharge in as little as 2 hours, or in about 14 hours with a standard 240-volt charging system. Yeah, charging times. So make a note of that one too. Towing capacity. We got towing, charging. What else we got here? How about Daimler trucks? Daimler, the largest truck maker in the world, seeing significant progress on the Freightliner E-Cascadia with a 250-mile range. Let's see here. They've got the Mercedes-Benz E-Actros long haul, 310-mile range. Daimler predicts it'll be ready for production in 2024. Yeah, so we've also got range, towing, charging. Okay, Daimler also announced an electric fuel cell truck called the H2. And I was reading an article, somebody was like, yeah, forget about fuel cells. So we'll see. We're going to stick with EV charging. Batteries. All right, Nikola Motors, let's see, plans for a $600 million factory making fully electric trucks and a hydrogen fuel cell model. Maybe somebody can also, in the panel, can we get the, what are the different batteries? Would love to, I really don't have a lot of information about the batteries, and I'd like to know more. Company's models include 2 semi-trucks available. Anticipated ranges, here we go, 500 to 700 miles, that's a little bit better. Company plans to build a nationwide network of 700 hydrogen stations. That answers the charging question. And it takes between 10 to 15 minutes to refill one of its trucks. Wow, that's fast. Nikola. Tesla. Everybody knows. Tesla's been teasing its entrance into the heavy-duty transportation sector for years, ever since it unveiled plans for the Tesla in 2017. But it's been pushing their timelines. They had a Walmart reservation, let's see, 300-mile range, 500-mile range for $150,000, $180,000 respectively. And for reference, a typical Class 8 diesel day cab starts at roughly $120,000. So that's Tesla. But I haven't seen one of their trucks lately. Then Volvo. Seems like there's been a lot of Volvo headlines. Volvo trucks, its zero-emission truck, the VNR Electric, came out in 2020. 150-mile range. It's not as near as far as the 300 plus. 65 miles per hour on the highway. 80% of the vehicle takes 70 minutes. 80% charge. 3 models. Volvo Trucks also in the early stages of introducing a hydrogen fuel cell truck in partnership with Daimler. I always got to look for those partnerships. And that's why I shared, I think I've got an autonomous partnership coming up. But here, again, Ford. Man, Ford making the big splash with the EV news. It's been nonstop. They got more tomorrow. They got some kind of announcement tomorrow about building 2 EV platforms. The SK Innovation announces an EV battery joint venture in North America. I believe this was near Georgia. Did I see that? EV-only future on Ford's radar, right? Selling only EVs in the U.S. Wow, right? Can't change the screen fast enough for some, I'm sure. I can easily see a point where we'd say, here's the date. We're going to be all electric. We're certainly working towards it. Ford's electric vehicle plans will hinge on a customer acceptance of the F-150. See how that goes. To underscore its ambition, yes, the SK Innovation to build its own batteries. And frankly, I'm glad to hear that. I would hate to see, we talk about America-owned, etc., and I'd hate to see America-owned fall behind on the battery race. Debatable. Tesla's in America, so there you go. In Europe, where there are demands by governments to ban gas cars, Ford has promised to sell nothing but EVs by 2030, if not sooner. We've also seen that on some of the West Coast states. Zero emission GM 2035. Ford says Lightning can outrun an F-150 Raptor. Really? This sucker's fast, I think we heard. I think that's the quote. Hyundai to invest $7.4 billion in the U.S. by 2025 with electric cars in focus, right? And then this gets into the Biden administration commitment to 650,000 vehicles in federal fleets. I guess I got Ford's attention. I'm just guessing. Charging infrastructure for commercial electric trucks lags targets. See, here's the downside. Electric commercial trucks getting more attention with Tesla and more established truck makers like Volvo and Daimler. A massive ramp up in charging infrastructure is needed. There it is. And that's what Michele said on LinkedIn to the tonight's show teaser post. Infrastructure. To hit the target, Europe will require a fleet of 200,000 electric trucks. Yo. And then they need 90,000 charging plugs. Wow. That is, can it get done? The U.S. will likely face similar challenges as companies add electric trucks to their fleets. Man, it's possible that for the time being, electric vehicles will stick to what the trucking industry calls a return to base model, right? Because you got to get charged. You can only go so far. Again, that gets into range, charging, plus if you're towing, that's going to affect your range and your charging. Just did want to mention, I know, autonomous truck. We're not going to talk about it, but you do see on here Waymo and Daimler and Torque and Daimler mixing with Freightliner. So very interesting stuff. Okay, I'll change it. Okay. Yes, I'm live 4 times a week. Tuesday nights live is the beginning of the week. And make sure you tune in tomorrow. DOT Compliance every Wednesday live chat. If you have a government regulation question, they keep coming. I bet you can't stump Brian, though. That's what David says. And he stands on the stump to prove it. Thank you, David. How we doing? It's another segment on DOT compliance. Oh, really? It doesn't matter how you load it or how fast you go or how fast you turn? Really? Yeah. How we doing? That's the segment on DOT compliance. Dispatching Live is every Thursday with your load board search advice. We have the Muggo problems, because there's a lot to talk about. And it's Lucha Libre Auto Transport. Anything goes, apparently. We're going to find it on the load board. You're going to see it live. You won't believe it. You really won't. Tell Tell somebody in upper management. Man, you need to tune in this show. Gosh, darn it. And Cars on the Move, dealers, auctions, and carriers, Fridays at noon with Jay and Ty. And this is where you can see behind the scenes of what's going on Auto Transport Intel Take 2 on Cars on the Move. Awesome, man. Loving it. Last week's show was Mobile App Tug of War. If you missed it, check that out. I'm not kidding. The information throwdown on that show was incredible. Check that out. And then next week, do photos move cars? Ty? Anybody? Do photos move? Yes, they do. Well, yes. Do they? Find out next week with Black Widow. This is the Car Shipping Business Channel. I'm Jay, your host. And I made it. It's 8:41, so I'll tell you, here's what we're going to do. And I see some great stuff. What was the question? Every home. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. On the solar, that's like solar panels. Very good question. Really good idea. Really good thinking. EV numbers go up. Transport load factor goes down. Ford is dumping. Yeah. Hey, Vistaga, what's going on? Maximum overdrive. Right. I tell you, I can't. Thank you, Chris. I can't talk about autonomous trucks just yet. Right? You never get it past the lawyer right now today anyway. So I'll tell you what. But it's coming. They're not going to stop working on it. Oh, man. They are just not going to stop. So do me a favor. Stick around. We're going to be right back after this with Joe Bercari of Midwestern Car Carriers, his notes, and we have a lot to talk about. So please join us. We'll be right back.
Are you completely stressed out from all the calls and the contracts and the verification of loads when nobody answers the phone? Call Murphy Auto Dispatch Services today. Murphy Auto Dispatch Services has over 15 years of experience in the transport industry. We are your office while you are on the road. We book, we verify, and we bill out your loads for you. We have an excellent accounting staff and an even better dispatch team. Give us a call today at 417-273-0021. Or if you want to email me, it's murphyautotransport31@yahoo.com. Give us a call today.
That is the voice of Sue. That's her information in the live chat. Phone number, email address, website. And Sue is my co-host on Thursdays on Dispatching Live. She runs a dispatch office. Are you looking for a dispatcher? Do you want to learn more about dispatching? Are you looking for a broker? She does dispatching and brokering. She's a fully licensed broker. She's got the information you're looking for. So I'll tell you what, we've got Joe in the waiting room, and we're about to begin. And I see there's great stuff, man. Being Mike Buchanan, I would think infrastructure would take priority. It doesn't seem to be moving fast enough, and that's a really good comment, because that is the thing. What's the first problem? Which problem do we put in front? You need another Zoom link? Yeah, sure, no problem. That's no problem at all. I'll just send you another Zoom link. I'm only live. We're only we're only live. That's right. We go live all the time. And that's why, because you got to keep your chops up. This live stuff is kind of crazy, but it's irreplaceable, right? I don't know how else to randomly connect with so many folks. Where is everybody? Anyways, we're not even in the same state. We're spread across the country. We now have international viewers. There's somebody listening to the podcast right now that's not anywhere in the U.S. They're overseas, and they're listening, and they're thinking, "Man, this is one crazy show." Is this completely unscripted? What's he waiting for? All right, here we go. Let's bring Ty up in here, and together Ty and I can introduce Joe Bercari. Ty, can you see me and hear me okay?
Yeah, that was a trick. What are you doing?
You trying to throw me a curveball on a Tuesday night?
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. We're here, right?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm excited about tonight. That was really good information highway too, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that was good. Educational. I learned a lot.
I learn a lot by researching. So then my goal is to, like how the baker puts all the stuff in the thing and he squeezes it onto the cake. That's kind of what I'm trying to do. And so, okay, I learned a lot. And I had to share it quick. So, yeah, it's interesting. And there, man, I think the questions. I mean, they present. Everyone's like, yeah, what are we going to do about this? What about this? What about this? I mean, yeah, what are we going to do?
Well, I can't wait till the EVs really start flooding the used car market. Can you imagine the nightmares we're going to have at the auction?
Okay, so the driver's like, okay, I did find the car 4 hours later, but now what do? It's totally dead, and I have no charger.
Ooh, it's going to be a rough day, man. I can't wait. I'm so excited. Can you tell? But here's the good news. Why are we talking about EV, Jay? Why?
Yeah.
Well, because this is part of the ecosystem, as you always talk about, but it does have an impact on your car hauling business, which we like to talk about you and your car hauling business. That's what I always say, right? So tonight's going to be really informative, and I'm excited because we got Joe with Midwestern. The other one that I'm excited about is Alex. Alex is going to bring some good stuff tonight, too. Alex is our buddy at Transwest. He sells lore, which I'm learning more about lore, and I really like lore. Then we got Paul, Machin. We got, is Michele on here, and who else? Huge.
Right. Yeah.
So we got a big panel tonight with a lot of discussion that it's going to touch on probably what's going to end up happening to your business at some point.
And we've got a totally stacked show, so let's get to it. I know Paul alone he's got his presentation's enormous. It's going to be awesome. So let's get Joe in here. I think all I need to do is go to, let's see here, Joe. Click that, click this. Okay, there we go. Now Joe should be walking in. We should be hearing the doorbell. And right there's the doorbell, and there's Joe. Joe, what's going on? Can you see us and hear us okay?
I see you. Can you hear me?
See you. I hear you.
Victory.
Okay, victory. We're here. So, Joe, what are we doing here?
Well, I'm throwing some salt over my shoulder to avoid last week's chaos and discontent and all that took place. Let's just pray to the YouTube gods that we don't have server crashes out here in the Midwest again. That was a tough show.
Amen. It was probably tough. Well, it had to be tough to watch. We were talking about the viewership. The viewership crashed like YouTube. Let's just put it that way. So that was last week. This is now. You said I got all these pages and notes. Joe, where do we start? How do we dive into this?
So the first thing you got to say is, like it or not, these things are coming. Electric vehicles are the future of the electrification of the automobile is, at least to some extent, in the cards for the American consumer. And with that is probably going to be, some degree of electrification of commercial vehicles, delivery trucks, things like that. Big trucks and that kind of stuff. I think the jury's kind of out on that. That's a whole other deep dive topic, but it's all going to start with the American consumer, and that day is some could argue that it's here, but that day where the majority of cars on the road are not running internal combustion that day is going to come. General Motors, a very bold statement that they were going to be building only electric vehicles by, I think, 2035. Their Cadillac brand is a target of 2030 before they start, when they say that they're completely switch over from internal combustion. I never thought I would ever see a mid-engined Corvette before, but we see it. And I never would have imagined that we're going to see an electrified Corvette, but I think we're going to see that too. It's going to be very interesting. These times are going to be kind of dynamic. And if you go down the list, and the majority of the pile of paper that you were waving around is this part here, where I just go through. Ford has two offerings. They just made that massive announcement about the F-150. and they already have the Mach-E that's rolling out. Midwestern has hauled a number of them already. Kind of a nifty car. It really took a lot of people by surprise, especially our drivers who are not used to, the way that the gas. Well, I just did it. The way that the accelerator pedal reacts under their feet was a little bit of a shock to a few of our drivers. General Motors, obviously, we just touched on, planning on ruling out internal combustion. They made a big announcement about their Ultium battery system. There's a whole website dedicated to the Ultium, what it's going to do. But actually, I went through their shareholder meeting report. What was the most recent one? I guess it was for the end of the first quarter. 250 pages of stuff that you would share with shareholders, and believe me, a lot of it was very dry. But when they got into the stuff about what they're planning on doing for EVs, it's really fascinating information. They're saying that the Ultium, if the progress on the research and development, stays on course, then they could have a 500 to 600 mile range on a standard battery on any vehicle that they build, and they're saying that it could go from 0 to 100% charge in 15 minutes, which no battery can do today. And a lot of what you're seeing on these new batteries, and I'll touch on some of the technologies, and I can kind of answer your question about the types of batteries that are out there a little bit. But, if they meet that vision in 2030, 2035, then, that's going to be really something. And there was someone made a mention about being able to charge your car in your home, and that's part of the package when you buy an F-150. For example, they announced that there's this thing you put on your wall that is essentially a 3-day battery for your truck. There is a lot of movement that's going to be going towards that. Now, solar panels and stuff like that, I'm not sure that's really going to take hold. Very recently, my wife and I were discussing solar panels. Here in the Midwest, probably not very practical. And the reason why, we got all kinds of sunshine, but also all kinds of hail. And that's going to be a big detriment for people who think, well, it's not like you can build windmills in most backyards to be able to self-produce power. But listen, it's early yet in that game. There's a lot more technology that's yet to be had. Hyundai, Kia, you mentioned that. There's massive amounts of investment that is going to be put into electric vehicles over the next 10 years. They already have the Kona EV and the Ioniq EV that are out there. They're planning on putting out a Genesis EV, basically to match the Model G80, which will be produced sometime this year. Kia is making the EV6, which is going to be a kind of a sporty SUV, 2022. Mazda is building a midsize SUV. Nissan building a midsize SUV. These are 2021 and 2023, respectively. 2023 and 2021, respectively. Rivian, big news. Rivian and Ford are in a big partnership. Whereas the F-150 is being targeted towards a certain segment of the American population. Rivian is going to, I think they called it a sportsman-based model, which is, let's face it, they're aiming for a Subaru type niche market where, you have a very particular type of people who are outdoorsy and that kind of thing that they're trying to fill. I respect that. Makes sense to me. Stellantis is indicating that they are going to be getting involved in this. In matter of fact, recent announcement that they partnered with Foxconn, who currently builds iPhones and all kinds of other electronic technologies. I would imagine that there's probably some discussion on semiconductors that's currently being had with Foxconn right now, but they also indicated that the point of the strategic partnership was to get Stellantis a penetration into the electric market for China because of, I guess, whatever, Foxconn has going on in terms of regulatory leverage there. Stellantis claims they're going to have 29 electric or hybrid models available for purchase by the end of this year. A lot of that includes Alfa Romeo, Fiat, Renault, and all that stuff. Peugeot, they just merged with Peugeot. And they're saying that in 2022, they'll have a fully electrified Jeep nameplate. Now, does that mean that there will not be any internal combustion in Jeep? I don't know. Does that mean that they're going to have an electric option for every single Jeep that's available? Probably. They may get rid of internal combustion if it's not selling, if it makes more sense. Tesla's the big dog. Right now they've been selling cars like crazy. There is the models 3, S, Y, and X. They like letters and numbers, apparently. They are saying that there's going to be a Roadster available for sale 2022, 2023. And of course, the ugliest truck, or the most beautiful truck, depending on your perspective, the Cybertruck, supposedly coming out in 2022. I'm just going to come out and say it, put it in an envelope. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but I think that Elon Musk made that truck look as ugly as possible. And when they actually unveil that thing, all those body panels are going to fall off, or they're going to rip it off, and you're going to see what that truck actually looks like. Because I don't think even Elon has the stones to put that thing out onto the market and expect it to do anything. Toyota, the Lexus brand has always stood for kind of a luxury type level. You can count on them installing a lot, or putting out a lot of EVs. Subaru has entered into a joint venture with Toyota. Basically, they're going to have an SUV platform, one with the brand Toyota, one with the name brand of Subaru, co-produced at the same place. And then, of course, they have what they call the BZ series, which is basically going to be their branding for electric vehicles, and I'm sure that they're going to do very well. They pioneered the hybrid technology, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do with electrification. Volkswagen, not a big player in the United States relative to some of the others I've mentioned, but remember, Volkswagen worldwide, massive company. Audi, Volkswagen, huge organization. So they're already in the European markets. They're talking about entering what they call the Buzz van, which, if you've ever seen the Mystery Machine from Scooby-Doo fame, it looks kind of like that, and it's going to be EV. And then, of course, they call the Space Vision, which is excuse me, just another brand, another SUV car type thing, crossover, that's going to be entering into the market. And then on top of that, look, Fisker, Lordstown Truck, Park, Bollinger, Byton, Canoe, Canoo, Lagonda. These are name brands that you may not know now, but you will. They are all going to be building some sort of EV, fulfilling some sort of role. Canoe, for example, and Lordstown Truck, they're going to be building consumer-grade light trucks and vans and things like that. Fisker is, they probably going to be going the supercar route, where same thing with Audi. They're saying Audi is going to be flipping over to a supercar route, so these two brands will compete. Porsche, of course, already has a couple of EVs out there and made a big splash with their EV SUV. And then Mercedes-Benz, another not as big a market in the United States relative to the other brands I've mentioned, but Mercedes-Benz, they're a massive brand, especially in Europe and a lot of the rest of the world. So, and they've already basically electrified every platform that they have. So, these brands are coming, and, the auto industry is going to have to find ways to haul this product, because they ain't gonna get from here to here, by themselves. Someone's going to have to move these things, and we're going to have to find ways to do it in a cost-effective and safe and efficient manner.
Whoa. Okay, now I got next, Jay. Okay, for anybody that's watching, we have car guys that are watching this, car dealers. We have a lot of tech people watching this. So we may have introduced Joe. Joe is with Midwestern Car Carriers, right, Joe?
That's correct.
Midwestern Car Carriers. So what's your title there?
General manager, Mr. Okay.
Okay, so this guy this is a transport guy, and I don't know if you were just as blown away as I was, but did you notice how he knew a lot of information about cars? Was that incredible? Right? So why do you need to know all this, Joe? You haul new cars? What do you do?
Well, so Midwestern is primarily new vehicles, although we'll haul anything with four wheels, I think. But we do a lot. We do some POVs, not as much as other companies. We do a fair bit of auction and that kind of relocation. But 90% of our business is new vehicle, new manufacturer, OEMs, whether it's contract business or spot buy business from various assembly plants and railheads in and around the Midwest. I'm kind of our box tends to be between Kansas City up to Chicago, over to Detroit, Toledo, down to Atlanta, and then back to Shreveport, and then back up to Kansas City. That's more or less the sphere that we operate within, plus in my states.
Right. So you're into this EV conversation because why?
Well, I mean, number one, I'm a car guy, and I just have always loved cars, but and particularly, American automobiles have always had a certain part of, a certain place of character within the American consciousness. And so I'm perhaps a little bit of a victim of that. But also, the much more practical answer to your question is that, in the career that I've chosen, what happens with the customers and the product that they sell, we have to find some way to haul it in a cost-effective manner, or we will not be here. And so if your finger's not on the pulse of what the market is doing and what people are buying and what it is that the customers, them being Ford, General Motors, et cetera, that whole list, then you're going to fall behind in a hurry to someone that is paying a lot more attention to you. So it helps being a car guy because I enjoy reading this stuff and researching this stuff, but also very practically and from a business standpoint, if you fall behind, if you're not moving, you're dying. And someone I used to work with told me that, and it's just kind of always stuck with me. So that's the reason, really, more than anything right now, because I like to eat.
Yeah. And so what are some of the challenges that you may foresee with the EV?
Well, the first is going to be securement. And so let me say that this way, I'm going to be very biased towards OEM. And a lot of that's simply because you don't see a lot of used Teslas or Leafs or Bolts out on the market that are, penetrating areas and what have you. At least not yet. But, the new vehicles that have come out, a lot of them, they come with them restrictions on where you can load them on the truck, how you can secure them. They don't ride the same way as a traditional vehicle does, because a lot of the EVs, their batteries are not actually located in where we would traditionally put, the hood or the trunk or whatever. You kind of have to imagine a skateboard that is, more or less the lithium ion battery that most of these cars run on. And then on top of that, they sort of drop the chassis of the vehicle up on top of it. So it's not a very balanced thing. A lot of that, and the batteries are extraordinarily heavy. And so these things, they ride differently because the center of gravity is very, very much lower. And when you're dealing with strap securement, there is no opportunity at all for you to use any kind of frame securement, chains and hooks inside of those holes like some of the old school folks used to use. Those options are completely gone. And so the way physics works on a vehicle that is a much lower center of gravity is a little bit different, especially when you're dealing with, for one, a not flat surface, because most car carrier decks are going to be at some, crazy angle. And number two, when you're dealing with a not flat roadway, virtually none of the highways, except for maybe, Western Kansas, are flat. And, so as you take turns, as you go over potholes and bumps and things like that, these things are going to want to move, and it's you really have to take into account what your clearances are and that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. Now I don't know how we are on time. Do I got one more question, Jay? Okay. So here I happened to swing by the Midwestern headquarters the other day. Shook your hand. Hi, how you doing? As I'm leaving, something came up about how do you load this? Is it the Mach 1? Is that the one that
Mach-E?
Mm-hmm. Mach-E. And I was really shocked at what I heard. So I want you to tell the story, because the guy was trying to, let me make sure I got it right. The guy's trying to load one. He wants to put it on number 1 on the head rack. So that's above the hood, right? Yep. So when I hear this and I know what the Mach 1 looks like, it looks to me like a Ford Escape, maybe, that kind of idea, right? Yeah. So in my brain, I'm thinking, well, that's a silly question. Just back it on. We don't back it on. Why, Joe?
Because underneath that automobile, especially behind the rear wheels, there is a piece of factory installed. It looks almost like carpet, but it's actually more like a foam rubber type thing. And it is designed to protect some of the areas where the suspension meets the transmission meets the bottom of the frame. And if that unit is backed on, then the wind will catch it and just rip that clean off. So that vehicle may only be driven in any position on a car carrier because of that. It was designed to be fine under basically any speed that car can go when it's being driven forward. But when that vehicle is facing the other direction, it doesn't work as well. Now, you can back it in certain protected spots on the truck, behind the cab and stuff like that. But by and large, those vehicles have to be driven on in order to protect that one particular thing. And that is not a new concept. A lot of the current manufacturers that are not EVs have load restrictions on what you can fit here and what you can't put there and all that sort of stuff. So that's relatively par for course. But what we were talking about when you were there and was kind of an interesting thing is that there were a few other positions that we believe that vehicle is safe to haul on. But right now, Ford has not indicated or proved that that position is indeed safe for the product to go without any risk of damage. And so in order to prove that point, the typical process in the manufacturing world, or excuse me, in the OEM world, is to go through a test load process whereby, you put a vehicle on, you secure it, you videotape everything, document the world about what happens, deliver it to its destination, and then take notes on the delivery and ensure that it got there damage free. And so that's typically the way that this goes. It's a very, and every manufacturer does this, as you would imagine, when a vehicle leaves that factory, it's expected to be perfect. And then when Midwestern delivers that car to the dealership, it's expected to be in exactly the same condition as we found it. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot goes into that.
So those things to me look small. They look like I could easily throw 9 on my 9-car hauler Stinger, right? But what's the problem here? No,
you can't. So the Mach-E has a curb weight of 4,920 pounds. So even though the dimensions are sufficient that you could put 9 on a piece of equipment pretty much any way you want, you will be on a traditional car carrier, Stinger, Steer, 80 foot or 75 really. You will run out of gross vehicle weight before you run out of runway to be able to load those vehicles on. And this is actually an extremely common theme across all of the manufacturers and the new vehicles as they're coming into the market. By and large, these lithium-ion batteries, they're very heavy. The motors that power these vehicles are very heavy. Individual, and there's usually more than one, especially on your larger vehicles. So, individually, the motors may not be necessarily more weight than a combustion engine plus a transmission, but the whole of the part plus the weight of the battery makes the whole of the vehicle anywhere between 15 to 30%, sometimes as high as 40 and 45% heavier than a comparable gas burner. And so a good example of this is the Hummer EV was announced by General Motors. They're going to be building an EV pickup and an EV SUV. And General Motors has disclosed that the EV weight is going to be 9,046 pounds. So anybody that's in car hauling right now just had a heart attack. The only other thing that weighs 10,000 pounds is a garbage truck. These things are massive. And to put this in context for people who are not necessarily industry car haul people, when I did this, Jay's probably smiling because he knows where I'm going with this. I thought of the biggest, fattest pig of a car. It had a reputation for being the biggest vehicle, on God's green earth. And that was the 05 Ford Excursion with a turbo diesel transmission and a four-wheel drive. That vehicle at its absolute heaviest possible incarnation, with every option that Ford could stuff into that thing, was 7,688 pounds. So the Hummer has the biggest thing that Ford and heaviest SUV Ford has ever produced, beat by a ton. Well, not quite, but you get the idea. So these things are really going to be a significant impact on the way that the loads are built, the way that they're delivered. Configuration, huge part of this, because we're allowed 80,000 pounds gross vehicle weight, but we can't go higher than 34,000 on the rear tandems. We can't go higher than 34,000 on the drive tandems. And whatever's left over is what you've got for the steer, as long as it's less than the tire and axle weight, which is typically around 13,500, 14,000 pounds. So, maybe you get under 75, 76, 77,000 pounds, but if the vehicle's configuration is one way or the other, then you might be over on an axle, and the DOT will hand you a good driving award that you're not going to be very happy about paying. Because very, very frequently, some of those tickets are actually assessed by the amount of poundage that you are over from their regulation. And so that can get really, really expensive if you're, a few thousand pounds up above. So we don't know what the Ford Lightning's weight is yet. Ford's been kind of cagey about that. I saw somewhere that it was an unconfirmed report that it's around 6,500 pounds. Comparatively, the current F-150 is around, I think they range between 5,000 and 5,800 pounds, kind of depending on configuration, whether it's long bed or all-wheel drive, or all these different combinations. That is still a pretty substantial difference. And if we're running loads, you're talking a load factor degradation just on the Lightning.
I'm going to jump in. If you feel like you're drinking from a fire hose right now, an electric fire hose, you are not alone. And really, the scary part is we just got started, kind of. Yeah. Because, industry-wise and information-wise, I do want to introduce, we now have Paul Machin of Black Book on the screen. Paul, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can see you. I just want to say in the live chat, Wendy at Delta Auto Transport, she's here. She's talking about we're only fitting 7 VWs ID on a load due to weight with the new EVs. And there's been some amazing comments in the live chat. Guys, thank you so much. But yes, I'm going to hand it over. Paul, I know you've got a presentation, and so please take it away. And there's more. Man, get your popcorn ready.
So Joe hit a lot of the topics, and you do a phenomenal job, Joe, and I commend you on your knowledge and your expertise, because it'll serve you well in what the market's today for the battery electric vehicle and what's coming tomorrow. I'm going to do my best to lay out how the new battery electric vehicle sales today and last year are the used vehicle battery electric vehicle sales for remarketing in the years to come. What's interesting is that we tend to focus mainly on the domestics and some of the imports that we are all aware of. Tesla, obviously right now, they dominate the market. They sold 290,000 electric vehicles in 2020. However, as you can see by the graph here, the competition is beginning to gain momentum. GM is adding a whole host of new vehicles, as you heard Joe go over. The Chevrolet Bolt vehicle is one of the fewer vehicles that's in the price range that the middle America can afford. Same thing with the Nissan Leaf that you heard Joe mention earlier. Some of the best-selling models in 2020 was the Chevrolet Bolt. And as Joe mentioned, the GM plans to be zero emission, all electric by 2035. That's 10 years after Jaguar and Land Rover says they plan to be fully electric by 2025. So think about that for a second. That's a little more than 3 years from today. They plan to be fully electric by 2025. Wow. Think about the movement and the changes they've got to make. So here's the competitive landscape of all the known competitors that are in the marketplace today. And you can see there's quite a few that have come out. And I bet you that you didn't realize that there was this many out there in the verticals. What's interesting is that the administration has promised swift movement of regulations to support the electric vehicle growth. And some of those regulations include the industry to invest over $250 billion in electronic technology to make it easier within the next 2 years, with both federal regulations and executives from the OEs working together to be on the same page. Now, what's not in this list that you see here are the new startups that Joe alluded to, like Nikola, Rivian. Forum Merger is a SPAC acquisition company that's launching a few other, it's launching another new electric vehicle. CIIG Merger, Canoe, Switchback Energy, Acquisitions, XL Fleet, Lordstown, Joe mentioned that, Lordstown Motors, Lucid Motors. That's one of my that's one of my favorite electric vehicles. That'll be a super sports car like the Bugatti, but in the electric version side. XOS, EVgo, Proterra, Joe mentioned Fisker, Joe mentioned Lagonda, NIO. So what's a SPAC? And how does a SPAC get promoted over between 2019 and 2020? Those EV SPACs raised close to almost $12 billion in funding. Now that just blows your mind when you think about that. They got no product and they've not released anything. So what did they sell? They sold revenue projections versus actual revenue. So there's a lot of hope on the dream that these people have put out there. So the challenges, we believe, is going to be a relatively slow growth that we are projecting for this decade on sales. And it's because, just introduce you to all those products that are out there, plus what GM has put out there, and Ford and Chrysler and Nissan and all these others, they're just trying to catch up to speed. The challenge we have is the fast charging infrastructure. As that continues to expand, we still expect slow growth because the fast charging electric vehicle infrastructure is just not there yet. We do expect stronger growth to happen after 2025, but we don't expect a massive shift to electric vehicles in the US market until really for the next 10 years, as you can tell by this graph. The market share of the EVs right now, we anticipate it to be 8% by the end of the decade. So without substantial changes in government policies, state and at the state and federal levels, we do not project a wide adoption of electric vehicles outside of several states like California. Acceptance and adoption of the battery electric vehicle by fleet companies and other venues can change the dynamics of the market. And we'll talk about some of what the government's going to do for that. So the headwinds preventing mass adoption. ICE doesn't stand for immigrant, it stands for internal combustion engine versus the battery electric vehicle. The price difference between those two is going to be tremendous still for the next 3 to 4 years. We already discussed the scarcity of the charging infrastructure, both at home and for commercial. Battery charging time. And we also note that the range is will become a non-issue for some retail consumers. And Michele will talk a little bit about that moving forward. Question earlier was the types of batteries that are being used that are of concern. The lithium-ion battery, which we know that Apple's had a problem with it overheating. We don't know about that. We don't hear those kinds of stories in the EV market. There's the nickel metal hydride battery, the traditional lead acid battery. And as battery parameters continue to widen, they're going to be covering the span of looking at a lifespan. How many miles can I get out of a battery before I can no longer charge it 100%? What's the safety around the battery? Does it heat up like the old iPhone batteries used to do? What's the overall cost? Can I get a battery down to 25%, or 75% less than what the current production is? Because that's about 75% of the current vehicle today. There are new technologies on the horizon that are polymer-based batteries and silicone-based batteries that some SPACs are looking at some tremendous investment opportunities. And these batteries, as Joe mentioned, are the 15-minute full charge batteries with ranges up to 600 miles and can last up to 1 million miles. 1 million miles. You can recharge that battery over and over and over again for up to 1 million miles. If that's the kind of battery that can fit into the medium duty and heavy duty trucks, that's a game changer in that vertical. Charging stations in the nation, according to Tesla, you can charge your car up to 80% in about 30 minutes. I don't know if that's true or not. I actually sat and watched a Tesla pull into a local gas station that had one charging, and they were there. I waited 45 minutes and they were still there. And the guy, I finally asked the guy, I said, I've got maybe half charge. You can get notifications on your phone. I know people that that own electric vehicles, when they make travel plans, they call the dealers that sell those vehicles to try to get cars charged. And this is as of 2019. There were 12,000 superchargers in North America. Superchargers can charge a battery under 30 minutes. The range of the battery electric vehicle is a huge concern. Right now, they range between 200 and 400 miles. And in the grid here, you can see all the different makes and models that are out there. And they fall short of what the current internal combustion engine does. And even the hybrid, I have a BMW 435i that's a hybrid. I get 32 miles to the gallon if I stay at 65 miles an hour on the highway. That's pretty impressive for a hybrid vehicle. So electricity, here's something to think about. Using electricity as a fuel, we think we're being energy conservationists. The reality is that it's environmentally benign in terms of greenhouse gas emission levels. The advantages that are offered by battery-powered vehicles are offset mainly by the source of energy used in U.S. power generation today. So when you think of plugging your car in to get battery, you're not getting solar power or wind energy or ocean wave energy. You're getting the energy that we all get that powers our houses today, which are usually powered by either coal, natural gas, or nuclear energy. So 18% of the total electricity generation in the United States today is renewable sources. So until that kind of infrastructure has been fixed, I think we'll see slow adoption there as well. And the U.S. has been decreasing their use of coal and looking at other ways to power their stations overall. This is the effect of federal credit on battery electric vehicles. So the sales of battery electric vehicles it's been pretty robust in the makes and models, but it's been dependent on the federal electric vehicle tax credit that you get. And right now, I believe GM and Tesla has exhausted their tax credits that they can have. So that's phase one. Phase two will begin for 2 more quarters, but instead of it being like 7,500 tax credit, it's only 3,750. So there's an incentive to buy the new vehicle using some tax credit. And we'll see what happens with Congress. Price comparisons with federal credit, volume, and trims from the Kia Kona, under 20 grand, to the Model X over 75,000. We anticipate that the battery electric vehicle will remain at a price disadvantage compared to the internal combustion engine that's equivalent for the next 3 to 4 years, preventing higher volume sales than what you would see. So historically, this price disparity led to high incentive spends. So mainstream cheaper battery electric vehicles from Japanese and Korean manufacturers, plus the Bolt electric vehicle, they will continue to put pressure from below by using some incentives. New vehicle incentives, as you can see, the higher their new vehicle incentives, they depress the used vehicle values in the future. The biggest challenge we see within the battery electric vehicle space is it lags behind the internal combustion engine because the high lease penetration on the battery electric vehicle compared to the standard vehicles today. Standard vehicles today is about 15 to 20% lease penetration overall, whereas a battery electric vehicle like a Tesla, it's about 85% lease. They want those vehicles.
Sorry. Explain this lease thing real quick. I haven't heard this before. I'm sure it's something you guys done. What's lease penetration? Sorry.
Yeah, so the industry standard for lease penetration on general sales, 15 to 20%. It's about the average lease. If you're really good, you as a dealer, you want to be about 30% in a traditional dealer. So let's say if you're a Chevy or a Ford or a Chrysler or a Toyota or Honda, because the retention, you can recycle that vehicle quicker.
Got it.
That's flipped when it comes to battery electric vehicles. They're in the high 80s. It's either you lease or you pay cash. Very few people finance a battery electric vehicle because the incentives are geared towards leasing it.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
So how does that translate to the used vehicle battery electric market, right? So gradual growth, and that's because the previous year's sales. If you paid attention to any of my previous posts that I put out there, I always talk about the last decade of sales and the current decade that we have of potential sales predicated off of previous new vehicle sales. So you can see that it's a gradual increase. Still not going to be a great used vehicle, electric vehicle market until really 2024, 2025 and beyond. I know I've recently worked with 3 new all electric vehicle marketplaces. That's all they specialize in. Private party sales of one electric vehicle to another customer who wants to buy the electric vehicle. I think Joe alluded that the Rivian's going after like the Subaru type of client, Subaru type customer with the way they make their trucks look and feel. And he's right. The EV customer is cliquish. They tend to be cliquish, like the Hummer. Hummer customers are cliquish. They get together like a Corvette. You know, they're all cliques. So if I know that Joe Blow Motors or John Jones, my neighbor down the road, has an electric vehicle that I've been eyeballing and I want to buy it, when he's ready to sell it, I may either buy that lease out from underneath him or directly buy it and lease it through my credit union or something like that. So that's where most of the electric vehicle sales are happening today, not through traditional lanes or through the auctions. So wholesale market retention on non-luxury vehicles, the short range for battery electric vehicle hurts retention. So the things like the 500, the Soul, the Leaf, under 300 miles, most people don't really want to buy those vehicles anymore. So they have to have a lower price. The fewer smaller, compared to the fewer small entry-level internal combustion engine vehicles, there's not that wide of a selection of the battery electric vehicles compared to the internal combustion engines in that space. Now, when you go and look at the luxury segments, currently Tesla is the major player in the used luxury battery electric vehicle marketplace. Still, you won't find those being sold. And they will dominate the luxury marketplace for the next 3 years is what we anticipate. And as Joe and I both mentioned, there's a slew of brand new startups that are getting ready to come out that have raised billions to produce these vehicles. And they're going to be some really incredible vehicles. Here's a snapshot of electric vehicles that are sold at auctions. You see California, lion's share, 430. You would think it'd be a lot more. But so where's the rest being sold? The private party sale. One individual selling it to another individual. Used retail insights. These are average days to CERN. So outside of California, battery electric vehicles are sold at similar speed compared to internal combustion engines. Right now, we're trending to be at 32 to 31 day turn as an industry average. So you could see 38-day turn, you see 35-day turn, you see a 34-day turn, mostly in the cities and states where it's promoted. Again, on my used retail insights, average market day supply, it's very, very healthy when you see an average market day supply so low, because that means the vehicles turn fast. They're being fast, with the exception of California. So think in terms of transportation. If a state like Arizona suddenly puts in some incentives or Nevada or Colorado to say, we want more electric vehicles on the road, and we're going to incentivize these used vehicles, you guys will be busy transporting vehicles from the higher from the cities and states that have higher saturation of the battery electric vehicles. Nissan Leafs, I'm just glad that Joe mentioned that earlier. Nissan Leaf was the most prolific used vehicle sold besides the Toyota Prius. The highest percentage of the 2 to 4 year old vehicles are at franchise dealerships. Ironically, not being sold private party to private party because they are most often leased with tremendous incentives. So how do we gauge consumer interest in the used vehicle market? So we did a research on some Google search, and we found out that there is as you can see, a very steady trend moving up of the average consumer doing searches on, can I afford an electric vehicle today? And obviously, Western states have the higher interests. And some of the cities are San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, San Diego, and Los Angeles. Think about the markets that are there and the incentives that are there. The current challenges in remarketing a battery electric vehicle, low retail demand from a franchise perspective. The demand is very, very strong between private party to private party. And they need transportation. They need to figure out how to get from private party A to private party B. And it's practically non-existent demand for used battery electric vehicles in the commercial space as of now. That's going to change. Lack of adequate infrastructure to evaluate used battery electric vehicles in the wholesale marketplace, such as if it's a 2-year-old battery electric vehicle, what's the life remaining in that battery? That's an expensive battery to replace, very expensive. And there's a heavy concentration of lease returns in California. And I'll end with what do we do? What do we provide for the market, for the marketplace on the EVs? We're heavily invested in initial residual valuation projections in all the vehicles that we've discussed and talked about. We've been doing white paper studies to help them determine how they should residualize those vehicles for leases. We also do price and equipment optimization studies for the electric vehicles. If you want to be in the lower pricing spectrum, what's the optimal way to equip and price that vehicle as an EV to get the most attention on it? Comprehensive go-to-market strategies. We work very well with industries like that. We also do a lifetime portfolio valuation strategy. We also host new electric vehicle remarketing optimization strategies and a whole host of electric vehicle market analysis. So the market itself it's going to be its own segment. It's a completely own segment. What's interesting is not just the vehicles is changing, the way dealers sell vehicles and the way you and I may either trade or resell an electric vehicle. It's also demanding changes on the way people get to buy those vehicles. Those same OEs are trying to figure out a way to control the entire retail process through their website for all electric vehicle sales, which translates to, if it's going to be controlled by the OE, then how do we deliver those vehicles? So we start thinking about that. And one thing that an idea came up because Silverman said he's towing a dead vehicle now, right? He's towing one, a dead electric Tesla on the back end. And I had an idea. Someone needs to create a generator that plugs into the wheels of the haulers and have all these different types of plugins to fit all these different types of electric vehicles. So while you're driving that electric vehicle to its destination, you're charging it. You're not delivering it a dead duck anymore. And Mike Buchanan and I are already talking about patenting it, so don't think anyone's going to take the idea.
Yeah, that actually, what you just brought up there, Paul, is very interesting because before the Ford Mach-E was launched, Ford sent out it was a confidential request, but they're all kind of confidential. So hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for saying anything about this. But they sent out a request to all the carriers asking how we handle in-op and dead battery vehicles. And they weren't asking that because they wanted to deal with that when you're on a loading yard. They were asking, how do you deal with that when it's on the car carrier, on the deck? And under normal circumstances, anyone who's hauled cars, I'm not going to get into what the tricks of the trade are here. Anyone who's hauled cars knows exactly what I'm about to tell them about using the hydraulics and to give yourself the proper angle of support. But EVs don't have neutral. And so that option may not be as available to you as it might have been in internal combustion engines. So there are definitely some solutions out there that have to be addressed. So.
Yeah, Mike, we're going to talk about that patent.
So I want to, wow, this is really awesome. And I've been opening up the panel, and we've got a couple folks still joining. So I just want to start with some introductions here. In the center square is Mike Landau, CEO of ParkMyFleet. Mike, we've never met.
It's a pleasure, and
thank you so much.
How you doing, Mike?
Pleasure, everybody.
Great. And then in center row, right side, Mike Buchanan of ARI. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Good to see everybody.
It's great to have you here. And I saw the comment about recycling in the live chat. Very cool. That's really cool because there is so much. In fact, the live chat, really, so many things are coming out. Everybody's trying to grasp and share and learn. Michele, ParkMyFleet strategy. Thank you so much for helping put the panel together and joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure. Nice to see everybody. I'm sorry that Mike Buchanan doesn't have his baby with him, though.
Not tonight.
Well, shoot. And then also we have Robbie of LMR Companies. Robbie, can you see us and hear us okay?
Yes, sir, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight.
Yeah, you bet.
LMR,
Glad to be here.
Another auto transport fleet carrier. And then finally rounding out lower right corner. Now everyone's interface is different, but since I'm running the show, I think I got it right. Alex Lyons with Transwest Trailers. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. So, all right, so we're here, and I just wanted to make sure I got the introductions.
What the data that Paul went over was really impressive, and I kind of nerd out on some of that stuff a little bit, and I think that what that tells me is that Wall Street loves the electric vehicle, and there is going to be, an incredible amount of investment into this up and coming, change to our consumer market. The question of whether Main Street likes it as much as Wall Street does, that's probably a lot more complicated. At the end of the day, it's going to be, new car sales are going to be driven by what the consumer gets out of the deal, and whether it's incentives or, whether the considerations, for example, I have a very good friend of mine who basically works on the road, and so range for him, very important, and he can't be driving 2 hours to exhaust his charge just to spend another hour charging himself back up again to drive 2 more hours to rinse and repeat. That's one of the things about the lithium ion technology. It was mentioned that it gets very, very hot very quickly. That's a very important problem. How does Phoenix deal with that? Because it's going to be very different than how Chicago deals with that. And also, but that, the other side of it is most electric batteries, they can't charge at the same rate from 0 to 100%. The measurement time of charging a battery is from around 15% to around 80%, because before and after that cycle, the charger has to slow it down, or else guess what? The battery overheats, and then you've got a huge problem. So if you're only can ever get to 80% of your charge, and your maximum range on your F-150 is 300 miles, that means your maximum range is really 200 and something, which means that you're refilling that tank, so to speak, probably 50 miles before that, so that way you don't have a pucker moment. So there is still quite a long way to go. Now, Ford's F-150, one of the things they did that I thought was really interesting is that they set the pricing very comparable to internal combustion, which a lot of the other manufacturers did not go that way. They kind of took the cost is what it's going to be approach. So how the consumer, takes to that idea is going to be very, very interesting. And also how fleets take to that idea, because EVs are going to work their way in to rental agencies and, professional fleet and contractor fleets and road work and all that other stuff. I'm not an expert on any of that. I hope somebody else here is.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, that's a great point. And all salient points, and some things that some of the things that you mentioned are things that we're working through as we kind of roll out our EV strategy at our mobility hubs. So we're looking, at how do you charge 300 to 500 vehicles at scale? That'll require 2 to 5 megawatt hours of simultaneous direct current electricity. And it may not, the local grid interests are not necessarily aligned with that of the fleet owner. So you may want to start charging at certain hours that are considered peak, in which case the local utility will hit you with tariffs if you do. So, some of the stuff that we're looking at is daisy chain battery banks and, various on-site power generation tools that'll help us offset what we need to draw from the grid. You make a very good point about range anxiety. Some of the things that we're working on also with some smart partners of ours is if you could algorithmically and in advance know the route and the weight of the vehicle that the vehicle is going to need to carry. So, and by example, in the last mile delivery space, where I believe strongly you're going to see the first at scale EV adoption. And that's, from what I'm hearing, coming at the end of this year, as early as this, at the end of this year. Yeah. And, what you're going to see is, well, how do you work out the unit economics on that? And how do you utilize machine learning to figure out, well, to your point, Joe, you don't need to charge it past 80%. Maybe you only need to charge it to 60% because it's not going to require that much. And you don't want to get in the red zone. And people have still to figure out how you unplug a vehicle autonomously and plug a vehicle in autonomously, which sounds a lot easier than it sounds. So those are a lot of very salient points, Joe, you raised that we're really thinking through today. An initiative that we're doing this summer is something we call Charge Across America, where we are driving a series of different EVs from New York to LA over the course of 10 days, utilizing existing charging networks to try to help, draw attention to range anxiety and show people that you can indeed transverse this country utilizing EV infrastructure. But, we're still as a country, as a nation, still in our infancy in terms of our EV infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure is critical here, isn't it? Because forget the aspect of having, what we'll call fueling stops, refilling stops, and just at whatever intervals of places, getting it to the scale that we currently have with petroleum fuel. That's kind of one thing, but let's take even a step deeper. Can the grid handle suddenly it radically increasing the amount of electric current? We just saw what happened in Texas because it got cold.
That's right.
It's going to happen when a third of households are charging up their commuter car overnight.
Right. Well, you have to look at, yes, if you have a 1/3 AC charging off the grid, that's one scenario. And there are certain physics that are associated with it. And then, if you look at the fleet depot, like kind of the ParkMyFleet model, where we're trying to coalesce and, kind of marshal vehicles to a centralized location for charging. We're looking at other physics issues and, do you co-locate a substation from the local utility, and various things like that, where you want to make sure, and an excellent example is what happened in Texas. So, if you're somebody that's looking to address fleet scale charging, you should really think about how you have on-site, at least we are thinking about how you have on-site electricity storage at scale. And then there's various cool things you can do with that, particularly in the event of a natural disaster.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to kind of skip just a little bit. Alex is in our screen, the bottom right. Alex, you sell car haulers, right?
Hey guys, everybody. Yeah, we do. We sell car haulers.
What are you seeing with this whole EV topic? What are you hearing?
So the main thing we're seeing is a request to have lighter trucks, lighter trailers and lighter trucks. To Joe's point, when you have a 4,900 pound car, you can't even put 8 of them on current trucks, right? So we're trying to, the manufacturers I think are all working right now to try to lighten up their trucks. I think they all managed to shave, I would say compared to 3 or 4 years ago, they managed to shave 1,000 to 1,500 pounds from what it used to be, which doesn't sound like much, but it does help.
In our experience too.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the current race right now. And then on the On the tractor side and the EV, it's interesting because the trucking industry is getting in that too, right? So to your point, the infrastructure is really what's going to be holding things back. And the only thing that can move infrastructure faster is going to be regulations, right? So if regulations push it really hard, then everybody's going to have to go in line. But where do you find the power? Like,
I think regulations and also a lot of incentives, and in particular on the trucking side, remember, we're not just regulated for weight and those sorts of issues. We're also regulated for time. Anyone that's hauling vehicles is operating under a DOT restriction, 14-hour day, 11 hours to drive, and all of the other, So if you're telling a driver that instead of 30 minutes to fuel their truck from 0 to empty, they're going to have to sit and burn 2.5 hours of their very valuable clock time, then there's going to be a little bit of pushback. So there's quite a bit more than just the trucks are getting heavier, and we have to address it with regulation and push out more charging stations and all that other stuff. The technology is also going to have to catch up.
That's true. And then remember, it's the ranges that you're being given on trucks, for instance, right now. Tesla, allegedly has the largest range right now, but we haven't seen the trucks really on the road yet. But they claim 300 to 500 miles. But most of the manufacturers, the regular truck manufacturers, have ranges of 250 for Daimler, which is Freightliners. And then you'll look at 150 for some of the competitors that have earlier release. But these are only at specific speeds. So that's not driving 75 miles an hour.
Sure.
It's driving 65 miles an hour. Because back to what you're saying, Joe, it's like not only it's going to take you longer to fuel, but it's also going to take you longer to go across. So if you're in Montana and you can go 75, 80, or 75, nobody goes 80, but you can, or you may not get to the next station. So it's still very limited for regional drayage. The best use case scenario would be, trash trucks and stuff, but that's out of the topic.
I think what the industry is waiting to see here, and I'd love to hear from another truck, the other trucking company here, as the weights in these vehicles go up and your load factor degrades just because you're going to be bumping into legislation, then, what does that do to the rate? Because at the end of the day, we're not here because of just charity. We're all here for a check. And a lot of the people that are watching this channel, especially those who are professionals within this industry and within the distribution side, are going to be saying, okay, well, am I going to be expected to haul this product at the same rate that I'm currently hauling internal combustion when it's 30% heavier than how we started? What's that going to do for the rate structure on in our business? And I think that's a massive question that the industry is going to have to really kind of tackle head on. The other thing I would also say is, at one point, our business took a look at legislation to try and increase what the DOT would allow on the roads. Frankly, our success rate with that has kind of sucked. We had the very recent 2015 Fix America's Surface Transportation Act, which got us from 75 to 80 feet and gave us a couple other little gadgets, but did nothing to the way that we distribute or handle any kind of weight. The last weight distribution change that was made by the DOT was in 1982. And because of associations that I've had in my professional life, I know that weight was something that was addressed in the FAST Act. And basically Congress shot it to pieces. So now we're not interested in changing that. So the legislation side of increasing your gross vehicle weight right now, that's not looking particularly good.
It may change.
Your rates issue.
Yeah, I think it's going to change because the administration is looking at setting the example, right? So they're looking at replacing all 244,000 UPS vehicles with an electric vehicle. And currently, they're looking at Rivian to be that replacement partner. And they're doing the same thing with the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the Veterans Affairs. There's like 544,000 potential government replacement vehicles that they're looking to have that done by 2025. And in order to get that done, they have to change the regulations that you're describing.
But there's a limit, though. The problem is this: you can increase the weight by some amount, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4,000 pounds, maybe something like that. But that's really all you're going to get. If you go much heavier than that on your gross vehicle stats, now you have to start changing out your tires because they can only hold, because they're rated to a certain thing. Now you got to start changing out axles. Then what does that have on drivetrain, on brakes, and all this kind of stuff? So there is an upper limit as to what legislation can do without completely obsoleting the fleet of car carriers that are roaming the roads in the United States today.
Yeah, well, I mean, Joe, I don't think you're going to see obsolescence necessarily, but you are going to see, to Paul's point about the current administration being way more bullish on potentially hundreds of thousands of leading the way with the federal fleet. I think that, everything kind of rolls back to physics issues. And I think that, particularly, as it pertains to long haul trucking in Class 8 and the physical kind of limitations and the physics issues around, is it EV? Is it EV with batteries that are embedded so that you have these ridiculous vehicle weights? Or could you go to a swappable battery model where, you've got, they roll into predetermined hubs, again, something that we're working on, and I don't mean to self-plug, but, where, in any location, in any type of depot, could you do a battery swap on a Class 8 vehicle, and that helps solve some of your weight issues because you don't have to travel as long, and they're pre-charging, so when you arrive, you don't have that idle time like you referenced earlier. And then that's the main schools of thought, I'd say, of people that we talk to who are really much smarter than we are. You see, I'd say it's about 70 to 80% leading heavy EV in some format. And then you still have some people due again to these physics issues that are leaning more towards hydrogen fuel cell. And again, how do you solve for that, and how do you store for that? And Alex, to your point about, people saying, well, decrease vehicle weight and carry less. And, Joe, to your point about that eating into margins, I think the jury's still kind of out on how to solve those physical issues, how to get, the regulation, I think, will conform with the times. And I think that you've got a frothy political environment with receptiveness to it. It's part of the American Jobs Act. Biden's constantly talking about it. Everybody saw him test drive that F-150. There's going to be billions of dollars that are going to come to support those initiatives. And the legislation from a regulatory perspective in the EV space right now, but as well as in the AV space, right? 10 years from now, you're not going to want to have human drivers operating these haulers. And yes, of course, it will take time for the legacy combustion vehicles to filter out of their duty cycles, and then they get recycled or whatever happens to them. But, eventually you're going to end up in an environment where, somebody's going to win this race, and, it's probably going to be electric.
Mike, we've got Mike over here, ARI. He's a fleet guy. What do you see? What do you think? What do you hear?
Great segue. And Mike, you knocked it out of the park. And Joe, you mentioned this also. And this is where Jay's question was so good on LinkedIn. One of the things that ARI is always looking at is that utilization of those vehicles for the fleets. Like Mike mentioned earlier, some of these last mile delivery, absolutely perfect for the electric side. But now you start looking at heat or elevation or load of that vehicle. Is that really the right unit to use in that situation? And then as we work with many different fleets in multiple capacities, and Joe, I took a look at your website on the carrier that you have pictured. What are the fleet clients that ARI has? And I know in some areas of the country, based on what they use those vehicles for, in a current state, an electric vehicle would not work. You're talking about the distance that they travel on a daily basis, what they're hauling on a daily basis. And those are obviously concerns from a fleet standpoint that we're always looking at. Obviously, my role specifically is that remarketing side. And Paul, great information that you shared based on the used electric vehicle side. One question I had based on what you shared, and it's something that I've followed closely because, again, from a fleet standpoint, alternative fuels have been something that ARI has worked with. You're talking about CNG, you're talking about hybrid, previous electric vehicles. They've been around for way longer than all of us think. Well, one of the things, obviously, is the infrastructure. And, you know, Michele, when you mentioned that on LinkedIn, I swear the Family Feud bells started ringing that was the number one answer, because obviously that's on everybody's mind. But where I'm going at is with Paul, as you see the utilization of these electric vehicles, one of the things I've noticed is at a certain age or a certain mile, and there's a competitive ICE vehicle in the marketplace, the hybrid electric vehicle, the value is nothing, drastically less than the internal combustion version.
Wow.
Are you guys seeing that as well? I know obviously Teslas are still relatively new in the marketplace, but are you tracking the higher mileage, the older units that at a certain point there's such a tremendous drop off in resale values?
There's a lack of trust in the battery output at that time. You know, I'm going to have to replace the batteries. It's like saying I got to replace all the engines.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're hearing. The feedback I get from the dealers and auctions.
Mm-hmm.
I think consumer adoption is going to come last anyways. As we can see, you know, the fleets are definitely going to be first. And then what's going to follow them is probably, or what I see is the car share, ride share companies, because at that point, when you're getting in one of those cars, you don't care if it's electric or not, you're not driving it. So that's what's going to happen next. And then once people become a little bit more comfortable, consumers become more comfortable with the EV, there'll be a little bit of adoption. It will lag behind, but I think the infrastructure has to catch up. They have to feel confident that they're going to be able to drive it and not have range anxiety. I don't think that's a huge factor with consumers because 70% are going to charge them at their house. So, you know, how many people actually drive 250 miles a day? Not that many. As far as this conversation, though, with car haulers, are there any manufacturers that are out there that are specifically building cars to transport EVs? And then the other thing that I was thinking through this conversation is, you know, 10 or 15 years from now, when it is autonomous, will the cars just deliver themselves? Will we not have car haulers? How will the cars deliver themselves to local hubs that then get picked up? We think there's going to be more change in this next 5 years than there were in the last 50. So even if we sound crazy, we have to kind of think way ahead of what is happening now to what's going to happen in 5, 10, and 15 years. And when we say infrastructure, we're not just talking about infrastructure to charge the EVs, we're talking about our roads too, and our bridges and all of that, which we all know really could have, gosh, if we only could have had a crystal ball when we knew this pandemic was going to last as long as it did, wouldn't that have been a great time to have all the roads and bridges fixed while people weren't driving on them? But hey, maybe we'll get ahead of the game if it ever happens again. These are all the questions that are kind of in my mind, and this is a great panel because I looked at it from the side of, you know, just trying to charge the fleets in the ride share, car share, but understanding, you know, how to move these EVs, that's just a major challenge. So kudos to you for all trying to figure it out ahead of time. And gosh, it's exciting, but it's also very challenging. So curious to see how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about the autonomous vehicle and what that landscape looks like, you know, as relative transportation 10, 15, 20 years from now. Will our companies or companies like ours be, you know, primarily obsolete? Will we be minimized? Those are certainly, you know, discussions that need to be had.
You'll probably just be different. I mean, you'll probably just be different. You know, things just change and you evolve. Absolutely.
Well, and everybody's touched on it. You know, infrastructure. But you kind of nailed it, right? It's not just the charging. It's the roads and you know, when we think about peak hours charging and things like that, you know, and autonomous plugging and unplugging, you know, to charge. You know, I think of, you know, my phone, right? When I go to bed at night, which I'll be doing shortly, you know, I don't plug my phone in, right? I set my phone down on the charger, and I kind of envision that going forward, right? Cars are, you know, in close proximity to the ground. I imagine there'll be some contactless charging whether that's at stoplights or in your garage or in your parking space at the office. I think there's a lot of variability there and a lot of innovation.
And one of the
that's
measures of
come
success now is if you keep everything charged. These younger
Right.
kids, I mean, they know how to keep their devices charged. It's not a problem.
They do.
They've grown up. They know. They understand how that's going to work. So I don't think charging a car is going to be a problem for them at all.
Yeah, and some other interesting factors that have been discussed. You've got the product, the cargo getting heavier. And then you've got Alex talking about how they're being pressed to make the trailers and the head racks lighter, right? Eventually, right? There's only so much room to move each direction there before there's a breaking point, literally a breaking point in the trailer. Because the vehicles are getting heavier and the trailers are trying to get lighter, and there's only one way to do that, right? Less metal, however you get there, or lighter metal. I shouldn't say less metal, right? Aluminum can replace a lot of steel parts. Lore's made, a lot of innovations. I think they've got a little ways to go, but, they're on the right track, and competition, I think, is really good. And, having an unchallenged, provider in this space is, that's a slippery slope. So it's nice to see Lore in there doing it. And, load factor, right? Joe was talking about that, the other transportation company, and eroding margins and things like that. Those are certainly big concerns as well. Yeah, quick and dirty, I almost think there has to be another tier of vehicle, right? When we bid these contracts, I'm the director of business development for LMR and SEC. So when we bid these contracts, right, load factor is a massive part of that process. And so you look at it, and these manufacturers have different tiers of vehicles or class, of vehicles, whether that's a car, midsize, a big truck. And historically, I think that's been on, cubic feet, how much space is it going to take up on my truck? But now we're getting to the point where just because, it's bigger doesn't mean it's heavier, right? We've been launching the Volkswagen ID4 for the last 45 days, 60 days, a really hot ticket item for Volkswagen. And fortunately, those are pretty small. So they only weigh about 4,500 pounds. So we can still put 8 of those on with current, spec trucks. But then you get into the Audi e-tron that launched, a year and a half or so ago for Audi. And that is an extremely heavy vehicle, nearly 6,000 pounds. And so your load factor is degraded to a point where it's unprofitable to haul that in the classification that they have it. Fortunately, those were test moves. Now we get Audi e-trons kind of spattered in with other Volkswagen Audi products, so it's not as impactful. But when you're talking about a full load of them, right, you're putting on 5 or 6 of those things, and that doesn't work economically. So Joe's right. There's a conversation that needs to be had there, and probably right. Lighter trucks doesn't mean cheaper trucks ever, and heavier vehicles doesn't mean cheaper vehicles really ever, right? And so heavier vehicles, more expensive vehicles, lighter trucks, more expensive trucks, right? The service provider at some point has to step up, and we all kind of have to step up at some point and hold that line and say, guys, we really need to do something about this, right? Because there's always constant downward pressure on rates, always, every bid cycle.
Yeah, to your point, Robbie, like all the manufacturers are trying to make their trucks lighter or the head racks and trailer. But what really will make an impact is not, the negative return we have now on engineering lighter units, right? I mean, we'll be there. We cannot make them any lighter without having something too fragile or with materials that are too expensive. Remember, your axles on your truck, like on your tandem, both axles are rated for 20,000 pounds, but highway will only give you 34,000 pounds, right? Unless they're spread axles. So really where you can really make some serious gains without having to change components on your chassis or on your axles, on your tires, on your brakes. Everything that composes your GVWR is legislation. So if you let people, hey man, now on the highway, instead of 34, you can be 36 or you can be 38, or you can go to the maximum rating of your axle. That's huge gains, right? You could gain 4,000 pounds on your truck and another 4,000 pounds of your trailer if that lets you run 40,000 pound axles. So that's, I think, the next gain, and maybe something they need to do for EVs, because the weights you're giving are just tremendous. I didn't realize how heavy those things are.
Well, I think, Alex, is Lore still working on that regenerative axle? trailer axle. Are they still developing that?
I have not heard anything about it. I'll have to ask. Maybe it's still a secret. I don't know.
Okay. Whoops.
It's great. Well, guys, I don't know about you, but that was amazing, and I'm ready for bed. How do you like that?
Well, I think it's fantastic. We're seeing it in the live chat. Thank you guys in the live chat. I do want to ask this. So then, and this, like some of the other topics, this might be ginger, but are carrier and fleet companies then having to figure these things out maybe the hard way rather than getting direct information from the manufacturer, and then there's the learning curve to then educate drivers on what they've learned, and drivers are finding out things the hard way. You know, are we in that phase, or is some of this information coming? You know, somebody at the manufacturer's like, guess what? Here's some of the things you're going to need to know about the Audi e-tron when you load this.
I mean, they're so secretive with a lot of that information up front, right? They want to hold so much of that close to the chest that, you know, there's not a lot of lead time on it, from my experience.
And that's
Maybe,
that's the honest answer, is that there's a lot of learning curve here, right?
Yeah, and I think just to kind of add on, I mean, the manufacturers will often schedule like test loads with the various business partners that they use, and particularly if, you know, a business partner is domiciled at a place where this vehicle is being built, and then they'll base their results on that. But the problem is that most of those test builds, you're working with one or two prototypes, so it's not really the same as filling a truck. You know, from top to bottom, you don't really get quite the same amount of information just by driving one onto the trailer and saying, oh yeah, it's wide enough, or it's not wide enough, or whatever. To Robbie's point, they're a little bit careful and cautious about what they release to the public.
Like, you've got the crash test dummies, and then there should be like a crash test dummy car hauler.
Yeah.
I've met a few of those.
Right.
I think I've trained a few of those.
Definitely. It's pretty amazing information, guys. It's really a lot to take in. I mean, I was excited. How it hadn't been more than 2 years, you guys, that we finally were so excited we could put 6 F-150s on one truck. Remember that? That was exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But, you know, here's a game. Here's what's gonna. Wait till the dealers want their EV cars now. You know, I mean, I don't know who gets the phone call, Robbie or Joe, who gets the phone call from the dealer or the OEM? How come these cars aren't delivered? Well, we can only haul 3 or 4 at a time. What do you want us to do? I mean, you start getting into that where you've got the customer that's trying to sell. But then if you go back to Jay's information highway where these guys are trying to sell them before we touch them, I don't know how it works out. Could be really interesting.
Let's don't forget that if you're in the car haul space right now, you're experiencing a pretty substantial shortage of drivers. You know, and the whole trucking space is under a shortage of drivers. So, you know, when these things get heavier and load factors start to diminish, then that's just going to put a further strain on the overall network capacity. So that's going to be interesting to see too.
Yeah. Robbie, definitely. Well, guys, Robbie, everybody, so good to see you.
Yeah, that was really wonderful.
Mike, nice to meet you, Mike.
Yes, pleasure, everybody. Thank you for having us.
I met that Mike. That Mike.
Mike Landau, CEO of ParkMyFleet. Mike, it was great having you on the show and meeting you.
Yeah, it was.
Pleasure.
That was awesome.
Meeting everybody.
And this was really an incredible panel, exceeded my expectations. So thank you all so much.
Yep. Good night, guys.
See you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Wow, that was really neat. So that panel is over, and amazing stuff. And I really can't. It would take me a while to thank everybody for everything that happened. Not to mention range anxiety. I was thinking, you know, if containment hold doesn't work, try range anxiety. And what Paul said about batteries, that, we're going to need all the batteries replaced, we need the whole engine replaced. So much learning, so there's so much happening. This was really incredible, and thank you so much, BM, for that. I appreciate it. Good night, Stan. Good night, Paul, and everybody that tuned into the live chat. I'll definitely wrap this up now, but I think there's a lot of room to do another EV transport plug-in, and maybe I'm looking at maybe in August. Actually, we have several shows to encore in August. Maybe it'll be Encore month. We need to do another round of Women in Auto Transport. It was an amazing show. Also, Mobile App Tug of War needs to come back for an update, and EV transport plugins. So, guys, thank you all so much for being a part of it. I want to thank Sue at Murphy Auto Transport. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our Thursday show again this week. Got a lot of stuff. Thank you, Mark and SuperFlo Systems, for the participation and support. Everybody that gave in the super chat, thank you so much for doing that. I really do appreciate it. I also want to thank United Road. Visit gonvta.org and check out holly.com. I want to thank everybody in my panel tonight. Joe Bercari, amazing information. Thank you so much, Joe. Paul Machine's Black Book presentation, wow. And then the panel, great stuff. ParkMyFleet was here, and ARI was here. Transwest Trailers was here. LMR companies. Wow, it was just amazing. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in, being a part of it. Do let me know how I can help. I really do. I want to know. Send me an email, autotransportintel@gmail.com. Let's find out what's going on next. And yes, you know what? Next Tuesday night, we have Black Widow. Do photos move cars? We're going to be talking about that. And yes, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Well, I guess it's time to run the car hauler. Tomorrow we got DOT compliance at noon. So if you got a DOT question, FMCSA, there's no way to know it all. That'd be like saying, I know the tax code. Don't be glib. Well, I'll tell you what. You might need some help. We got Brian Riker, your DOT guy. He's an expert. Join us at noon. Ask questions in the live chat. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to run the car hauler. I'm out of here. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Peace out, everybody. Thank you.